But there's an important question that we need to ask and answer. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about the interpretation of law. Okay. When there's disagreement about the interpretation of law, what do? Do you shake your waist, wave your fist, and sing Jama songs? How does that resolve the problem of disagreement over the interpretation of law? You don't shake your waist, swing your fist, and sing Jama songs. It doesn't resolve anything. Okay, so I think it's important for us to understand that. Now, you know, when you're on this program with somebody like Eric, you are constrained a little. You understand? And that's a real problem.
Oh, okay, see why.
So, I think
don't let your head sweet you.
I know.
Then you are constrained a little. But Eric, listen. The case that the High Court determined was not based on mathematics.
Right.
It was not based on mathematics at all.
Whenever I say my PENDREAM TV, PENDREAM TV, there, I see them, yopo.
Hello guys, you are once again welcome to PENDREAM TV, your number one political hub in Ghana and beyond. Today we bring you another powerful reaction from Kwesi Pratt, a seasoned journalist as we all know him to be, has finally taken his step to react to the happenings in Parliament yesterday and calling Afenyo-Markin to order. As a lawyer who we all know him to be must not behave the way he is by threatening the judiciary. He said a lot of things which I would like you to join me listening to what he said into detail here on PENDREAM TV.
Welcome back from Algeria.
Thank you, sir.
How did it go?
Oh, it was very well. I mean, initially I felt a little out of place because it was a meeting of AU foreign ministers.
Oh, okay.
Of course, you know that I'm
not a foreign minister.
You know, and there were a few of us who were considered technical people. And there were also a number of people from the diaspora, especially the CARICOM members. So it was a very good, high-level meeting. We discussed the issue of reparation and tried to put it in proper context, you know. Had a few problems. I mean, on the second day I went for lunch, you know, and I saw a very high-level African diplomat at the AU sitting with a German participant in the meeting. And first of all, I was wondering, why German participants in this meeting? This is a meeting of African diplomats, top-level diplomats, strategizing to press for what Africa needs from countries like Germany. And you have a German diplomat sitting in the meeting, you know. So I was worried. But then I heard this diplomat from one of the East African countries busily assuring the German diplomat that all this will come to nothing.
Oh, the struggle that you talked about, which has to do with that struggle to get the kind of respect that we require as Africans and so on. Back home in Ghana, there appears to be a bit of a struggle. But this time around in Parliament, in the House of Legislature, the minority has been struggling to get something done the way they deem it fit, you know, or they deem it right. And so there was some confusion in Parliament, I don't know, for want of a better word. Now, you look at most of the newspapers today and you notice that lots of them are talking about, but of course it's understandable because it was a big issue. It has to do with the Kwandai seat. The center of all of this is the Kwandai seat and how the Parliament has handled the outcome of that Tamale High Court, you know, ruling. Now, it says Kwandai seat creates chaos in Parliament, front page of today's Daily Graphic, and the story is by Pakome Emmanuel Damali. And it says Parliament slumped into chaos yesterday as the minority side rejected the declaration of the Kwandai constituency seat vacant and instead demanded the withdrawal of the statement issued by the House to that effect. It was a reenactment from Parliament's recent playbook, with the minority clad in black with matching nose mask resorting to noisy chants, including during a 15-minute submission by the Majority Leader Mahama Yariga. They sang, banged tables and refused to yield to the House's normal procedures in a frantic defiance of Parliament's own enduring rules and procedures. The Minority Chief Whip, Frank Anodompreh, later declared that until the Pandai controversy was resolved, government business would suffer. Now, speaking on the floor of Parliament, Mr. Anodompreh averred that the declaration made by the Speaker of Parliament the previous day, following a ruling by the High Court, was premature, given that an application for stay of execution was pending before the court. The Member of Parliament MP, Fonsawa Medwejiri, further insisted the declaration of the seat vacant was inconsistent with binding procedural rules governing the effect of application for stay of execution. Mr. Speaker, it is not right. When an application for stay of execution is pending for determination, any proceeding for execution of the judgment shall be stayed for the period. Mr. Anodompreh affirmed that the minority side do not agree to the letter submitted to the EC Electoral Commission and called for it to be withdrawn forthwith. He adds that as a major pillar of democracy, Parliament must set a good example to society. Now, but the Majority Leader, Mahama Yariga, defended the Clerk of Parliament decision to notify the EC of the vacancy of the Pandai constituency seat. In a composed speech that travelled the path of history and precedence despite the noisy bangs and the chants of the minority, Mr. Yariga cited Article 1125 of the Constitution, which states that the Clerk of Parliament shall notify the EC in writing within 7 days after a vacancy occurs, and the by-election shall be held within 30 days after the vacancy occurs. He explains that the clerk acted in accordance with the Constitution as the statutory 7-day period prior to his writing ended on December 1, 2025, triggering an obligation to notify the EC. The clerk was obliged constitutionally to notify the EC on the 4th of December. The clerk wrote to the Electoral Commission indicating that there was a vacancy. Mahama Yariga said he emphasized that the clerk action was in line with the Constitution and the Speaker's ruling, and urged the House to uphold the notification and proceed with arrangements for a by-election. Mr. Anodompreh had said that the Speaker's decision had generated concern among minority members of Parliament because it appeared to undermine the rule of law. And it goes on and 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 on. Now, the Minority Chief Whip warned that a lack of confidence in Parliament will threaten the stability of the country's democratic order. He is questioning the inconsistency in the position of the Speaker for declaring the Pandai seat vacant, while during the 8th Parliament, he strongly maintained that Parliament must not act when there is an application for stay of execution. The same inconsistency was seen in the Honourable James Jachi Kwesi matter during the 8th Parliament, where you strongly maintained that the Parliament must not act while a stay of execution is pending. Mr. Speaker, with respect, the question that naturally arises is why has the principle changed? What explains the abrupt departure from the binding reasoning you articulated on 24th of November 2025? Why does the stay rule apply in one circumstance but not the other, particularly when the factual and procedural posture is virtually identical? Eric, I'm sure you watched the proceedings in Parliament today on TV. I mean, your thoughts?
I think it's important to make the statement that protests are a necessary part of democracy.
Right.
Protests, very, very necessary. You can't eliminate protest and have a democratic situation. The right to free expression, it's embedded in the right of people to protest, But what do you protest about? You can protest about the fact that the price of rice has gone down. And I'm sure you've all seen the video which has gone viral. A young man who is busily protesting that since Mahama came to power, he has forced the price of rice down. And he's wondering whether Mahama thinks that he doesn't have enough money to buy rice and so on. You've seen that protest?
I've seen it.
It's a legitimate protest.
That's very interesting.
It's a legitimate protest.
I've seen that video.
You can't kick against that, But there's an important question that we need to ask and answer. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about the interpretation of law. Okay. When there's disagreement about the interpretation of law, what do? Do you shake your waist, wave your fist, and sing Jama songs? How does that resolve the problem of disagreement over the interpretation of law? You don't shake your waist swing your fist and sing Jama songs. It doesn't resolve anything. Okay, so I think it's important for us to understand that. Now, you know, when you're on this program with somebody like Eric, you are constrained a little. You understand? And that's a real problem.
Oh, okay, see why.
Oh, I think
Don't let your head sweet you.
I know.
Then you are constrained a little. But Eric, listen. The case that the High Court determined was not based on mathematics.
Right.
It was not based on mathematics at all.
Right.
The High Court was not counting votes. It was not counting valid votes and invalid votes. What the High Court decided simply was that the wrong procedure and processes were followed in the declaration of that result. The case simply is that the electoral officer for that constituency created a new coalition center by himself without notifying the NDC candidate. This is the case.
That's it. Simple.
So, number of valid votes and invalid votes, pink sheets and so on, they don't arise at all. Did the electoral officer by himself create a new coalition center without involving one of the sides in that election? That's the issue. Finish. No more. Okay? So it's not about who got 3,000 votes and who got 2,000 votes. This is the gravamen of the case. Now, be that as it is, the High Court made a determination, okay? And then an appeal was filed. Now, you know that I'm not a lawyer, so I don't pretend to be one, okay? But the law as it stands, and the Speaker of Parliament explained that very well, and he's a long-standing lawyer, that the appeal acts as a stay of execution for 7 days. 7 days only. That's what the law says. Yeah. 7 days. That 7 days has elapsed. Yeah. What's your problem? In any case, between yesterday and today, you're talking about 24 hours. The court is going to make a determination today. So, why the rush? The court is going to make a determination today. Now, you see, so many things have changed over the years. Some of the things that happened yesterday in the 1960s and 1970s would have resulted in people going to prison today for contempt. There's an application before the Court of Appeal. 24 hours before the court sits, somebody who is a lawyer addresses a press conference and is warning the Court of Appeal judges not to take a certain position. That's clear contempt. Clear contempt. Who are you? Before the judges have heard the case, to hold a press conference to warn the judges that they must take a particular decision or that you will hold them responsible for the chaos that will happen in the country and that if they take a certain line of action or certain decision, they'll be seen as being manipulated by the executive.
Yeah, but Kwesi,
that's so insulting.
Kwesi,
yes, sir.
You know there's background to that comment.
It's a bad comment.
The minority
it's an
leader,
insult to the bench.
The minority leader just last week held a news conference on this same matter. What he said was that the judges are pandering to the whims and caprices of their paymasters. So I'm saying that comment...
Paymasters?
Oh yeah, he said that.
Yeah, but that's an allegation.
So that's where the man has he's drawing inspiration from somewhere.
Yeah, but Master, that's a serious allegation. To say that justice are pandering to their paymasters is to suggest a serious case of corruption and bribery. You understand? Under normal circumstances, why? The Chief Justice should be calling for an investigation into that allegation. Bring your facts to show that judges are being paid to take a certain decision. You see? And if the judiciary if the bench were to take such a position, you know what will happen?
Yeah.
People will end up in jail.
Let me read a story on my Joe Online, just briefly, so that I'm not said to have
You
misquoted.
will
So
end up in jail. What's the basis of that allegation?
this is a story. Obviously, Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin has launched a scathing attack on, and this is my Joe Online, a scathing attack on Ghana's judiciary, accusing it of acting in the interest of political actors, following the Tamale High Court decision, political actors, to annul the 2024 parliamentary election in the Kwesi constituency. On Monday, the court upheld blah, 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 blah. Addressing journalists in Parliament on Wednesday, November 26, Afenyo-Markin described the court's conduct as shameful, insisting judges were serving the interests of their paymasters.
Paymasters? I mean, look, I don't think that we should get there. I mean, where we are going is very slippery. You understand? To accuse a judge or judges of pandering to their paymasters is a serious allegation, which cannot be taken lightly by anybody. And yet people hold press conferences, make these statements, and just walk back home. I think it's unfair. It's unfair to the judges, it's unfair to the other party in the case, and it's unfair to those of us who are victims of the misinformation they're spreading. You understand? It's a very serious, matter. But listen, just now, this morning, when I came here, I heard the minority chief whip actually threatening that government business will suffer. And I'm wondering how. Yesterday, in the midst of the Jama and the wrist shaking and waist shaking and all of that, all of government business went through. Budgetary allocations for major strategic sectors of the economy and so on were approved. How did it suffer? Even yesterday, in the midst of the black and so on, government business went on. I mean, I would, and I don't speak for them. I don't even have the right to think for them and so on. But if I were in their position, yesterday was a fine opportunity to explain the alternatives that the NPP has to government projections. Fine opportunity. The whole world is listening to you. The media is there. Live coverage on television. Government is proposing to allocate resources to key sectors of the national economy. And you are just singing Jama songs. Listen, an opportunity to say that, look, if we had power, we would not allocate so many millions to this sector. We would rather allocate to that other sector and so on. That opportunity was missed yesterday.
Right.
And I'm quite sure, and I mean it, I'm quite sure that there are many people who are either members or sympathizers of the New Patriotic Party who are completely, disgusted by what is happening. Look, 1992, the NPP had, not 1992, I think it was 1996.
96? Okay.
The NPP had a very small number of members of parliament, led by people like J.H. Winsor and so on. Look at how they used parliament to their advantage. Look at the issues they raised. Look at the alternatives they put forward and so on. Today, if you look at the NPP, it still has a small minority, you understand. It's not able to project anything. It's all about being boisterous and so on. And where does that leave us? One of the things that impressed me the most yesterday was the way the speaker comported himself. The speaker was very, very measured and carried on the duty of parliament, as if nothing was wrong. And in the end, all the bills which were submitted in parliament yesterday were approved without any hiccup and so on. I mean, that mastery performance of the speaker is commendable.
Right.
It's highly commendable. The speaker conducted himself very, very well yesterday.
Okay.
There have been references to an earlier ruling of the speaker. Mm-hmm. And I've taken the time to read the ruling of the speaker. What the speaker said was that, look, he was not going to declare the seat vacant at that time. That it was too early to declare the seat vacant. and that certain conditions needed to mature before the seat could be declared vacant.
Yes.
Those conditions matured in 7 days. So the Speaker has not contradicted himself in any way. You understand? I hope, and I do hope, that for the sake of deepening democratic practice in Ghana, whilst upholding the principle that we can protest about everything and anything, I mean, you can protest about everything. You can protest, about the fact that your neighbor is wearing a red shirt,
Right.
and that red shirt upsets you, and so on. You can organize a protest around that, and so on. Whilst upholding that principle,
Okay.
those who exercise that right, I think ought to take this country a little more seriously than they do.
Let me read a few messages and then we'll take a break and then we'll come back and look at some other topics. We have about 2 more to go. So, this one here from Reverend Jones Latte, who's watching us from the UK. He's a lawyer and also a media practitioner. He says the kudos to Kwesi for holding up. African leaders have sold out to the West. When the US and UK destroyed Libya, leading to the death of Gaddafi, African leaders kept quiet. Only Mugabe spoke against the onslaught of Libya. How we restore African dignity in 2026. Now, it says on the second issue, an application of stay of execution does not nullify a standing judgment until a superior court has dealt with the application. If so, the application of stay of execution may not stop a Speaker of Parliament from acting on the standing judgment. Of course, it is reasonable for the Speaker to wait till the case is decided by the appeal judge. That's from Reverend Jones Latte. Musa Batua from Asawasi says that, good morning, the shameful conduct of the micro-minority was annoying and disgusting, reducing Parliament to such a low level. The very people who are once touted themselves as apostles of the rule of law, those who eat, drink, bathe, and sleep at the court are today behaving lawlessly. They have quickly forgotten about the Honorable Judge Kwesi case. Their sudden disregard for due process exposes the political expediency behind their actions. It is disappointing and dangerous for our democracy. Bo Bachman, who is one of the strategists for Alan Chermanting, who is the founder and leader of the UP political movement, he says that the good people of Ghana, if the MPP couldn't govern responsibly in power and still cannot conduct itself properly in opposition, then perhaps it's time to collapse it altogether and replace it with the UP, which has proven far more disciplined and responsible. Alfred Kojo Tredel says, good morning, Moro, and to your cherished viewers, permit me to use your medium to plead to the Speaker of Parliament to stop being lenient and crack the whip. Moro, Article 42 of our Constitution says that every citizen of Ghana, 18 years and above, and of sound mind, has a right to vote. But it's unfortunate Ghanaians do not know the kind of people they are voting for, if they are also of a sound mind or not. The view that some MPs of the minority need some kind of, that's a bit harsh. But he says they need something. I'll now mention that. Their behavior yesterday simply tells you that they are not fit to be in Parliament, let alone to be called honourable members. That's coming from Tradles. Okay. So this one here from... So Honorable Eugene Wachi Entry, who's a former Subin MP, he sends me a message. No, well, it's a message, but it's also a screenshot of something somebody has said. Well, I don't know whether it's entirely true, because anyway, so this is what it says. It says, are you aware that regional communicators who are not in support of DMB have been sidelined? The sad reality is that those sidelined are the best communicators within the various teams. I mean, Eric is not with the DMB team, but he's here. So I don't know what this person is talking about. But anyway, Eugene, but thanks for drawing attention to that. Yes.
You and I are not the MPP.
That's true. That's true.
Huh?
You have a point.
He knows best. And if what he's saying is not true,
right,
there are those who contest it.
Right.
And in any case, Eugene himself has an eye on becoming General Secretary. Of the party.
Yes. It's not something that's coming from him. He was just drawing my attention to something. You know, I don't know. He may have to tell me why he thought that, you know, I should have a look at it. But anyway, so Sani Saliu says, Salaam alaikum. Your editor has been very charitable to the topic as political drama in Parliament. This is very generic and wholesome. Now, some of us would rather caption it as a shambolic display by minority in Parliament. What we witnessed yesterday in Parliament was dishonorably shameful, to say the least. Denying them the battlefield in a small space by the majority is highly commendable. I think the Speaker is treating them with kid gloves, and it's high time he cracks the whip. Not a good morning. Sani Sali, who sends that message. And this one here from Eben in Kwabenya says, my applause to the NDC majority in Parliament for showing maturity yesterday, especially the leader, Honorable Wayaraga. Thumbs up for the yeoman's job done and allowing government business to be done successfully, no matter the minority disgraceful behavior. Regards, Honorable MC Agbo of Ghana East, and also Peter Kwesi Mensah. Okay. Okay. All right. That's fine.
Yeah, now all this will come to nothing. Why are you worried? We all participated in the atrocities against the African people. So we are equally to blame. How can we claim reparation and so on, you know?
Wow.
My goodness, I couldn't take it. You know, so I just walked to the table and told this African diplomat my peace of mind. And the German was so embarrassed, he left the table, you know. But I didn't leave it at that. The next day was my turn to speak. And in my speech, I actually drew attention to this diplomat and what he has said. I made the point that with these kinds of diplomats, Africa is going nowhere, you know. And with these kind of leaders, where are we going? They will betray us all the way. Interestingly, he left the meeting and I never saw him again until I left, you know. But this was the low point. You know,
this was someone who was invited officially by the organizers.
A diplomat in the AU.
Oh, that's fine.
Representing an African country.
Yes. Obviously, he was invited officially.
I mean, unbelievable.
Wow.
You know. But generally, the meeting went very well. We came up with the Algiers Declaration, which clearly defined, you know, what reparation means. And the interesting point is that reparation is not about the payment of monetary compensation. Reparation is an effort to reset the world, you know, to ensure that Africa takes its rightful place in all the institutions of the world and so on. For example, the United Nations. Right now, Africa has no serious voice in the UN. We only vote at the General Assembly. But real concrete decisions are taken in the Security Council. Now that's an untenable position, given the fact that Africa has a population of 1.4 billion people. And all these small European countries sitting on the Security Council. Okay. So it's so unfair to us, and we need to restructure that. The World Bank, as an agency of the UN, needs to change. The International Monetary Fund needs to change. The World Trade Organization needs to change. And you know why? Around 1945, when these institutions were being established, only about 4 or 5 African countries were independent. The rest of Africa were under colonial rule, so we had no say. So these institutions were developed and structured to serve the interest of our colonizers. Today, in 2025, why? They need to change to reflect our interests. We are fully fledged independent states, you know, and we ought to be able to exercise our own sovereignty and so on. That's why these institutions ought to change, you know. I mean, only a couple of days ago, the United States issued its strategic security plan. Did you notice something?
Right.
I was really worried. There's a line in it which says that Europe is suffering civilizational erasure because of what? Migration.
Right.
Can you sense that racist tone in it?
Yeah.
That because people are migrating to Europe and so on, the civilization of Europe is collapsing. I mean, racist insult, direct racist insult. They should not be able to take this. We shouldn't take it. You understand? There's no way we should take these insults in 2025.
Right.
You know. Now, one thing is clear. I was very, very highly impressed by the commitment of the government of Algeria to this question. You know. Interestingly, it is President John Dramani Mahama who is the AU champion on reparations. But the Algerians are playing a very, very key and important role in pushing this agenda. I mean, the president was heavily involved in this meeting. Their Minister of State, you know, with responsibility for Africa, and I think the Algerian diaspora was in the meeting throughout, never left even a minute. So I think it was a fantastic meeting. The Algiers Declaration steps, you know, spells out the steps that need to be taken, you know, over the next 10-year period, which includes quantifying the loss to Africa, not just in monetary terms, because one of the things that we lost was science. We lost a lot of science. You know the story of the Ghanaian woman, actually, who lived in Elmina, who had a scratch from a cat, and it was festering. So she used a local balm in order to treat it. She was, of course, arrested and tried in the Elmina Castle for sorcery, for witchcraft, and eventually was taken also to Portugal, I think, for retrial. And this is an affront to African science. To use medicine which had been prepared by Africans was considered witchcraft, and so on. And there are many stories, many stories. So how do we restore that? How do we restore the science? And then, I think I'm going too far. But listen, I mean, you go back into history and you go to 1452. And in 1452, the papal bull was issued. You know the papal bull, it was law at the time, signed by the Pope. And the papal bull which actually authorized, in their language, the civilization of people like us. What did it mean? That we should be forced to become Christians. And that those who refuse to convert to Christianity should be killed. This is a law issued by the Pope. As a result, look, 12.6 million Africans were forcibly taken from their land to go and work as beasts of burden for hundreds of years without pay. You know, and so many things. I mean, we need to fight that. Now, what is interesting is that all those things which happened from 1452, you know, 1884 and so on, they're still happening to us under different guises. They're still happening to our education has been completely, you know, tweaked in such a way that education serves the interest of our oppressors. Tomorrow, I don't know when you went to secondary school and so on. In my days, and I'm sure you, history examinations, we were made to answer questions like, you know, describe the positive and negative impacts of colonialism. So right from childhood, we are told that colonialism had a positive impact. Yeah. And we've grown up with it. And worse still, after secondary school, we've come to believe that the best education can only be had from Oxford, and
Cambridge,
Harvard, and so on. So the best of our students and so on end up there and get more confused and more polluted. You know, so that attack on our traditional educational system and so on is still ongoing. And we need to stop, you know, the domination, we need to stop the discrimination, we need to reset, and that's a huge agenda. Because these forces will not stop.
No, they won't.
I mean, after independence, when they saw leaders and countries which were towing a different path, what did they do? They killed them.
Yeah.
They just killed them. You understand? Why? Patrice Lumumba, you know the story of Patrice Lumumba? Yeah. They shot him. They removed his front teeth as souvenir and dissolved his body in acid. Because they were afraid that if he was properly buried, His grave would inspire people. So they dissolved his body in acid.
Yeah.
Look at how Chris Hani was killed. You know, Modibo Keita. What happened to Modibo Keita and so on. You understand? So the fight is going to be very painful, but it's a fight we cannot ignore. To restore our dignity and to come back to the path of prosperity and so on, we need to struggle. And the struggle has begun, and it's begun in Algeria. And Algeria is a very significant country. Algeria lost 1.5 million of its citizens in the Algerian War of Independence. 1.5 million people were killed by the French, you know, before Algeria was granted independence and so on. So that's what we want to do in Algeria. I think I've taken too much time already.
No, it's okay. I mean, we always enjoy your lectures on Pan-Africanism. We learn a lot, you know. So you see, Eric and I are
history
paying attention.
Students of history.
But we're listening with, you know, with rapt attention because we needed to learn a bit more. So that's fine. But
Thank you for watching. PENDREAM TV really appreciate your time and say God bless you for the good work you are doing. If you really enjoyed this video and like what Kwesi Pratt said, please do leave a comment below. Like and also share to other members to watch as well. Do subscribe before logging out. Until next time, keep watching PENDREAM TV, keep engaged and keep questioning. Thank you.
Dedi kama mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Na so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Ah nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.